She didn't leave when you argued. She left when you stayed quiet about the wrong thing. That's the part most men never notice. You replayed the last fight in your head, the raised voices, the sharp words, thinking that must have been the moment everything cracked. But relationships don't usually break in explosions. They break in silence, in the seconds where something feels off, and you choose comfort over clarity. At first, it doesn't seem dangerous. You tell yourself you're being mature, easygoing, understanding. You let a comment slide. You ignore a small disrespect. You swallow the urge to say, "That wasn't okay." Somewhere in your mind, a question whispers, "Am I overreacting?" And because you don't want conflict, you answer yourself quickly, "Maybe I should let it go." This is how it happens for most men, not through cruelty, not through anger, but through tolerance without standards. You think forgiveness is strength. You think patience will be rewarded. What you don't realize is that every time you stay silent about something that matters to you, something quietly shifts in her perception, not dramatically. Just enough. You start to feel it before you understand it. She's still there, but slightly farther away. Her tone changes. Her respect feels thinner, harder to grasp. You ask yourself, why does she feel distant? But the answer never comes in words, because it wasn't one big mistake that caused this. It was a series of small self-betrayals you barely noticed. The uncomfortable truth is this: respect isn't lost when you mess up. It's lost when you show, without saying it, that your boundaries are flexible under pressure. In that invisible moment, she learns something about you, not what you say you value, but what you're willing to tolerate. And that lesson lingers. That's the silent moment. Everything changes. The moment her perception shifts, quietly, permanently. So what actually causes that moment? She can desire you, and still not respect you. That idea alone unsettles most men, because we're taught to believe attraction is the finish line. If she's texting back fast, if she wants to see you, if the chemistry feels strong, you assume respect is already there. But attraction and respect follow completely different rules, and confusing them is where everything quietly starts to fall apart. Attraction is emotional and reactive. It's sparked by presence, confidence, mystery, familiarity, or even chaos. Respect is slower, colder. It watches how you move when things aren't smooth. You've probably felt this without having words for it. She was drawn to you, excited even, yet something felt unstable. You might have thought, but she wants me, so why does it feel off? That confusion is the warning sign. Men who rely only on attraction start bending themselves to keep it alive. They compromise too early. They trade their standards for harmony. In their head, it sounds reasonable. I don't want to lose her. It's not a big deal. But every time you do that, attraction may stay for a while, yet respect quietly erodes. And without respect, attraction becomes fragile, emotional, inconsistent. This is where the shift happens. You realize attention isn't the same as being valued. Desire doesn't mean she trusts your strength. Attraction can exist even when she doesn't fully take you seriously. That realization stings, but it's also clarifying, because respect isn't about how she feels in the moment. It's about what she believes you will or won't tolerate, even when it costs you something. Respect is the stabilizer. It's what keeps attraction from turning volatile. When respect is present, attraction deepens instead of fluctuates. When it's missing, attraction becomes conditional, dependent on mood, validation, or convenience. You can feel this when her interest suddenly cools for no clear reason. It's not random, it's structural. Most men never see this distinction. They chase desire and neglect boundaries, thinking they're the same thing. And this is where most men fail. The mistake isn't what you did, it's what you tolerated. That's the part most men don't want to look at, because it feels uncomfortable. It feels easier to replay your actions, your words, your tone, instead of admitting the quiet moment where you told yourself it was fine when it wasn't. Respect rarely dies from one big failure. It erodes when you excuse something that crossed your internal line. It usually starts small. A comment that felt dismissive, a cancelled plan with a careless excuse, a boundary pushed just enough to test your reaction. And in that moment, you pause. You feel the tension. But instead of honoring that feeling, you override it. "I don't mind," you say it out loud, or worse, you say it only to yourself. That sentence feels peaceful in the moment, but it carries a hidden cost. Overforgiveness isn't kindness. It's silent self-betrayal. When you repeatedly let things slide to keep harmony, You teach her something very specific about you, not through words, but through behavior. You show her that your standards are flexible when pressure is applied. You show her that discomfort scares you more than some, and she doesn't judge you consciously for it, but her nervous system registers it. This is the turning point most men miss. Tolerance feels noble, but attraction doesn't interpret it that way. Strength isn't measured by how much you can endure. It's measured by what you calmly refuse to accept. When you tolerate behavior that doesn't align with you, you lower the perceived cost of losing you. And when the cost drops, so does respect. She learns your standards not from what you say, but from what you allow. Every unchallenged moment becomes data, not maliciously, not intentionally, but instinctively. A woman will subconsciously test limits the same way pressure tests structure, not to hurt you, but to understand you. And once that line moves, something changes. Her behavior subtly shifts, her tone adjusts, her certainty about you softens. You feel it before you understand it. The question is no longer what did I do wrong? It becomes something deeper. But why does her behavior change after that? She doesn't hear your intentions, she reads your behavior. What you meant doesn't reach her nervous system. What you did does. And when you stay silent in a moment that needed clarity, her mind doesn't label it as patience or kindness. It starts translating it into meaning. Meaning is everything here. Inside her psychology, silence is never empty. It gets filled instantly. She replays the moment, not with logic, but with instinct. He didn't say anything. That thought lingers. Then another follows quietly. So maybe it wasn't that important to him. You may believe you're keeping the peace, but her mind is scanning for strength, for certainty, for leadership. Silence, in the wrong moment, doesn't feel safe. It feels like absence. Meaning matters more than words ever could. When a boundary isn't spoken, it doesn't register as generosity. It registers as permission. Permission for the behavior to exist. Permission for it to repeat, not because she wants to disrespect you, but because the environment allows it. Human behavior adapts to what goes unchallenged. This is where the shift happens. Respect doesn't collapse all at once. It thins. She starts comparing without realizing she is. Other men in her past, other men she's observed, men who calmly spoke up, who didn't raise their voice but didn't disappear either. The contrast forms quietly. You don't feel replaced. You feel reinterpreted. The turning point is subtle and unsettling. Your silence becomes a message you never intended to send. It says, this is acceptable. And once something is acceptable, it loses weight. Boundaries unspoken become boundaries non-existent. Respect can't attach itself to uncertainty. By the time you sense the distance, the decision has already begun forming beneath the surface. Not as a plan, but as a feeling, a loss of gravity, a quiet emotional recalibration. So the question isn't whether to speak or stay silent. It's understanding what silence communicates when it matters most. So what should a strong man do instead? They don't raise their voice to feel powerful, and they don't shrink themselves to keep someone comfortable. Their strength lives in clarity. When a moment demands direction, they don't hesitate or overexplain. They simply state where they stand, and the room adjusts. This is where most men get confused. They believe being nice will earn loyalty, that patience without limits feels safe. But niceness without backbone doesn't feel reassuring. It feels unstable. Weak niceness bends to avoid tension. Calm strength absorbs tension and redirects it. One chases approval, the other sets tone. You can hear the difference immediately. Weak niceness sounds like, it's okay, don't worry about it, even when it's not okay. Calm strength sounds like, that doesn't work for me. No threat, no anger, just reality. The words land heavier because they're not wrapped in emotion. They're anchored in self-respect. This is the turning point most men never reach. They think boundaries must come with force to be effective. In truth, force signals loss of control. Calmness signals ownership. When you enforce a standard without tension, her nervous system feels it, not as pressure as certainty. And certainty creates safety. Men who confuse aggression with strength try to dominate moments. They argue, explain, justify. They want to win. Strong men aren't trying to win the moment. They're protecting the relationship's structure. So when a line is crossed, the response is measured and final. I don't continue conversations like this. Or, that's not acceptable to me. Then silence. Not punishment, completion. This is where respect begins to rise again. Not because you demanded it, but because your behavior made your standards undeniable. She doesn't feel managed. She feels oriented. She knows where you stand, and more importantly, that you won't abandon yourself to keep her close. Calm strength reassures without pleading. It leads without forcing. It removes confusion, and confusion is where respect dies. But what happens when clarity still isn't enough? What if she keeps crossing the line? Some moments can't be fixed, only ended, not because you didn't try hard enough, but because something fundamental has already shifted. The danger isn't the first mistake, it's the second time the same line is crossed and you stay. That's when the relationship quietly changes shape, and so do you. Repeated disrespect doesn't just hurt the bond, it rewires your self-image. At first, you explain it away. She didn't mean it. Then you minimize it. It's not that serious. And slowly, without realizing it, you teach yourself that your standards are flexible, not out of kindness, but out of fear. Fear of conflict, fear of loss, fear of starting over. This is the point most men miss. The relationship stops being about her behavior and becomes about your response to it. The second time she does the same thing, the disrespect, the boundary crossing, the betrayal, and you stay, something inside you fractures. You feel it later as resentment, quiet anger, a loss of attraction, not toward her, toward yourself. Walking away at this stage feels brutal. Your body resists it. Your mind searches for reasons to delay. Maybe this time will be different. But that voice isn't hope, it's avoidance. And every time you listen to it, you trade a little more dignity for temporary comfort. The turning point comes when you realize leaving isn't punishment, it's alignment. You're not trying to hurt her, you're trying to stop hurting yourself. So the exit doesn't come with insults or accusations. It comes with calm finality. I can't continue this. Or simply, this isn't right for me anymore. No debate, no begging, no explaining your worth. Ending the relationship without hatred is the hardest form of strength. There's grief, yes, but there's also relief. Because for the first time in a long time, your actions match your standards. You're no longer negotiating with your own boundaries. That's when respect returns, not from her, but from yourself. And once you have that, everything changes. And this is the real power. The man who can leave is the man she remembers, not because he was louder, richer, or more dramatic, but because he didn't bargain with his self. Men with standards are rare because standards require something most people avoid: the willingness to be alone before being disrespected. Most men stay not because they're in love, but because they're afraid of the space that comes after leaving, the silence, the rebuilding, the uncertainty. So they compromise, they adjust, they tell themselves it's temporary, I'll deal with it later. But later never comes, only quieter versions of the same pain. When a man develops standards, something shifts internally. He stops seeing a relationship as validation and starts seeing it as alignment. He knows that being chosen means nothing if he had to abandon himself to be chosen. That mindset creates real scarcity, not the fake kind built on games, but the natural kind born from self-respect. This is where fear dissolves. The fear of loneliness is replaced by clarity. The world feels bigger again. Options reappear, not just women, but peace, focus, purpose. He realizes he was never trapped. He was just negotiating with a version of himself that didn't believe he deserved better. Men like this don't announce their standards, they live them, and because they can walk away without anger or desperation, their presence carries weight. People feel it, women sense it, not as intimidation, but as grounded certainty. He knows who he is. That identity changes everything. Relationships become choices, not lifelines. Disrespect becomes a signal, not a sentence. And walking away stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like protection. This is why men with standards are rare, and why they're never forgotten. If this lesson resonated, subscribe for more truths most people avoid, and share this with a man who needs to remember who he is.